welcome everybody to our Zoom lobbying meeting to kind of kick off our 2021 Ghost Army lobbying efforts. And I am Rick Beyer, and you probably all know me. I think you all do. And I say hey to Michelle and Madeline. And I would ask you to mute yourself unless you want to ask a question, which you're free to do at any time. And you can try to get my attention also in the chat column or by waving your hand. I don't guarantee that I will see any of those, but I will give it a shot because I do want to be as interactive as possible. I just want to say that Zoom claims that I only have 40 minutes with this on my account before they cut it off. That has actually never happened, but if it does happen, you should be able to just wait a moment and then log back in with the same information. So that's what I'm going to do if that happens, and I hope you will too. Or you can use that moment as a great excuse to escape and know that you didn't have to spend more than 40 minutes doing this. So the purpose of this meeting is to kick off our gold medal efforts in 2021. And as most of you know, and I'm just going to admit a couple more people here. And as most of you know, hi, Jerry.
Hi.
The gold medal legislation has now been introduced in the House of Representatives. Of course, introduced by Representative Annie Custer, a Democrat from New Hampshire and my college classmate, and introduced by the Republican co-lead is Representative Chris Stewart of Utah, who Madeline and Michelle know, and who has met Stanley Nance, and who has been very enthusiastic in supporting this. And we're thrilled to have all of those guys, both of those guys and their staffers working on this with us. The bill number is, I love it, it's Bill 707, House Bill HR 707. So we're going to fly to victory. We're going to jet our way to, okay. But you're going to remember it now. You're not going to have any trouble remembering that bill number. We expect the bill to be introduced shortly in the Senate. They're busy doing something, some of you guys may have noticed. So we're going to assume that they need a few days before they're ready to get to this. So we are currently in the 117th session of Congress. This runs until December 2022. And for me and for this lobbying effort, this is kind of the do or die session. We've only got 11 veterans left with us. That number is dwindling. We lost 4 veterans in December, which was just a frightening month. And I think we have to get this happening now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk for about 15 minutes. I know it seems like 20 already, but I'm going to talk for about 15 minutes. And then I'm going to open it up to questions and comments, observations of other people. This is really a group effort, and I feel like I'm here to guide and help lead, but it's really kind of what you guys can do, want to do, and will do that will help make this happen. For anybody new to this effort or anybody who hasn't really thought about this, I want to mention briefly that the Congressional Gold Medal is something that's been around since 1776. George Washington got the first one. Yay! And it goes to an individual or group who have, quote, performed an achievement that has an impact on American history that is likely to be recognized as a major achievement. And it has gone to a number of World War II units that have been honored this way, including the Monuments Men, the Doolittle Raiders, Merrill's Marauders, Chinese American veterans, and others. And so the WASPs, Women Air Force Service Pilots, were honored this way. And so the Ghost Army Gold Medal, the Gold Medal is a very appropriate way for a unit like the Ghost Army to be recognized that was not recognized at the time during World War II because of secrecy. And greetings to Taylor. Nice to see you here. I sometimes feel like the lobbying effort is just a massive civics lesson that I'm involved in. And it certainly has improved my understanding of a lot of things, and it may be for other people. The gold medal legislation is different from all other legislation in one respect, in that in order to be considered in committee or voted on the floor of the House or Senate, it requires 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate to co-sponsor the bill. And so that's a high bar. And I think we are finally poised this year to reach that bar. But that is the kind of the goal that we have. And our immediate goal, um, um, yes. So Taylor, that's fine. Um, I'm letting in anybody who joins at this point. So there are no restrictions. Even if some of the Secret Service men want to come back and talk to me again. Um, so so we have a very discrete goal. Our goal. Somebody needs to mute because I'm getting a lot of extraneous sound from somebody. Um, we need to get to 290 co-sponsors in the house. That is our immediate goal that we have, and uh, getting to 290 unlocks the door for us to either go to committee or go directly to the floor. Um, we have 215 co-sponsors already, and that is really due to the extraordinary effort, I think, of the people who lobbied last year, so many of whom are on this call. So we started out with 200. We're already at 215. So we need 75 people. We need 75 representatives to co-sponsor, and that's our goal. And so I've been involved in doing this for a while, as have some of you guys, and have come to the conclusion that the best way to do this, the absolute best way to approach this, especially during this pandemic, is through an email campaign directed at the appropriate staffer for each congressman. And so that's really what we're involved in doing right now. And there may be other things we can do when we visit in person, and there may be other things that make sense at certain times. But we feel that the number one thing we can do is email the appropriate staffer for each congressperson. And there's an opportunity for each of you to play as large or as small, but as large a role as you want. Okay, I'm not going to tell Linda she can only email, her congressman. I'm not going to tell Carla that she can only email people from Massachusetts. I'm not going to tell Colin anything. I'm really, frankly, but I want to tell you all that you can do kind of as much as you want. I'm going to give you some guidelines, and I'm always happy to kind of interact and offer suggestions and more thoughts on the best way to do that. And so then once we get to the get the bill passed in the House, then we'll pivot to the Senate. And I think the Senate is going to be its own tough nut to crack, but easier with having the bill already passed in the House. So I thought about what the best way to do this was, and what I want to do. This is the moment where I share my screen. It's always the scariest moment in every presentation. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to talk about some of the resources that we have available. And I sent out an email. Did I go to the right thing? Has it come to the right place? Yeah, here it is. I sent out an email with this, with a link to this. This is our resource page. I'm also going to put it up in the chat window, which I can't see right now, but I'll put it up again in a minute in the chat window if you didn't see it, and if you didn't get that email. But this is a folder on our Google Drive, and it's called the Gold Medal Resource Folder, and it's accessible to all of you. And it's got a lot of really valuable information in here, and I'm going to go through it. You can all see this, right? Can I get a few nods or shakes if you can't? Okay. I'm not going to go in the order of things here, but I'm going to go in the order of importance. And the first thing is the co-sponsor list. And this is the co-sponsor list right here. And this is our scorecard. This is all the congressmen who co-sponsored last year, who's co-sponsoring this year. And over on the right-hand side here, you see these columns that say contact. This is for you guys to fill in if you've emailed somebody. And I'll scroll down to give you an example here. I see that Reese Holmes, who's on the phone call with us, has already emailed some people. And here's an example of just putting in, Reese email 2421. Not a whole lot of detail, just basically an acknowledgement that there was an approach made to that office. And we've got a few columns there for contact. We've also highlighted in green everybody who's new, everybody who's a new congressman this year. So those are all people who we probably have to educate, because unlike The other people all gotten 25 emails from us about the Coast Army, but these guys haven't gotten any. So that's probably an important area for us to educate. Um, and can you see this again? You can see this spreadsheet, right? Okay. Um, so I'm going to just, hopefully, I'm just scared to death. I'm going to delete everybody. Um, so then the second list that's really important is this list right here. This is the Congressional Target Email List. Okay. And this is an email list which we also are trying to update. And this email list is everybody, the appropriate staff person for each of the representatives in Congress who have not yet co-sponsored. It's like a lot of information in one sentence, but this is our target email list. This is the staffers for the representatives who have not yet co-sponsored. So this is the email list that you can use to find if you've got somebody that you want to go after. If you say, I really want to talk to somebody who works for Representative Mike Burgess in Texas, well, the representative's last names are in this column in the middle, and there's Burgess, and we see that Catherine Lenz is his health legislative assistant. You might say, wow, why should we talk to his health legislative assistants? Well, that's who the office has basically said is the person who handles veterans affairs for them. And that's the avenue that we have in. So we have this list right now has, I think, 220 names on it. And we do try to update it both because people leave their places of employment and move around, and also because the list is getting smaller, right? It's getting smaller and smaller every time we have people co-sponsor. And this list is put together with the help of Representative Custer's office. They have supplied us with this information that we're using here in order to contact these representatives. And the third thing that I'm going to go into any detail on, the rest of them I'll just talk about real briefly. The third thing is the gold medal one sheet. And this is our basic information sheet. And you can download all this stuff to your computer as well. You can use it on the Google Drive or download it. But we have an information sheet here about the bill, about the organizations supporting the bill, why the bill should be passed, the contact information at the bottom of the bill. I include this in every email I send about the gold medal bill, just automatically, because it's got the very basic information that somebody can look at very quickly and do something with. And you'll see that the House bill is on there. There's no Senate bill on there because there is no Senate bill yet. So, okay, here we go. Where am I going here? All right. I'm going to talk about the other things just very briefly. We have soldier lists by state. So we have a list in every state in this folder of the soldiers who served in the Ghost Army. We have letters of support from different organizations. If you wanted to use the American Legion resolution or the letter from the World War II Museum or something like that, you can. We have a downloadable video trailer here. That may be more useful for circumstances in which you're able to lobby in person. But we also have a links page here that has links to that video and other videos, and I may add some other things as we go along. And we have a sample email, which I'd rather you didn't use. I'll get back to that in a little bit, but it's there. We have a sample email that's there for people. And I'm going to talk about what to do with this information, but I just wanted to see before I leave this screen, because I'm going to stop sharing it, if anybody has a question about this resource folder.
Rick, if I may ask a question.
Yes.
So I see on the email list, there's also phone numbers. When I have tried to call, I apologize for my 2 Wisconsin reps that have not signed on yet. But if I try to call them, they right away will say, what's your zip code? And I'm starting to get smarter to find zip codes to find in their district. But they will shoot me down if I don't know my zip code for their district.
Yeah, I really wouldn't call. And especially now in the pandemic, I just think that I think that all the ways that you have that are kind of over the transom ways to reach people are not as effective as knowing that there's an actual person, an actual staffer who this is their area and they're in Washington, and sending them an email.
Okay.
And they won't say that to you. They may not respond to you. They may just never get back to you, but they're going to see that email and it's going to get to them. And, we have found that this is, of all the ways to do things, this is kind of the most effective way is to do that.
Okay. Okay.
Rick,
Yes.
can I say something
Yes.
to that?
You should say who you are.
I'm Michelle. I'm
Michelle.
Madeline's mom.
Good to see you. Yeah.
One thing that we've found, not with calling, but emailing, because sometimes we'll run into the same thing where people will say, where are you from? They want to know if you're really in their district and they care about that. That's where the soldier list by state comes in really helpful, because if you can find a soldier that's from their area or something like that, you can say, I'm doing it in behalf of so-and-so or this family of so-and-so. And if you can tie their reps to a soldier, they're a lot more excited.
And can I jump in and say, Madeline, we have a list by state, but had you gone and made a list by congressional district?
Yeah, I have. I've divided it into the congressional district, and I've also, with that, highlighted all the veterans that are still here with us, and by their district. So
Could you add that to this resource folder?
yeah.
Super. God bless you.
I was just about to ask about the survivors, because that would be especially attractive if a representative has somebody from their state who's still alive who will be a recipient.
There are 11 survivors that we're aware of, and I'll put that list up there. If I try to do it now, I'm sure I will delete everyone. And most of them have sponsored. I think there's two that have not, two or three. And we're working on those guys. So, but there are only 11 that we know of out of 1,100, which, as I'll mention later, is a point that I often make to people, saying, we got to get this done now. All right, I'm going to stop sharing this screen. So
can I ask you one thing, Rick?
Yeah, Keith.
How do I get a hold of this resource folder?
Very good question.
It's on Google, but
I sent an email, and I have also just put the link up on the chat.
Oh, super. Okay.
If you can't find it, if you have a problem, if you lose it, just email me. I'll send it again.
Super. Thank you.
I lose it all the time. I have to go back and look it up time after time. So that's all fine.
Thank you.
So, okay. So those are the resources. So what are you going to do with all that? So what I wanted to is talk about kind of targeting, and in the, given all the current stuff going on in Washington, I realize that's an unfortunate word. Let's say focusing. Let's focus on who we're going to talk to. And some of you have already reached out to people in the past. You have an idea of who you want to reach out to. You have kind of a plan in mind. That is great. I'm going to just admit 2 more people here that I just saw. To the 2 people I just admitted, I am sorry if I didn't get you faster. I didn't see you. But if you want to, so you may have your own idea of who you want to reach out to. If you don't, I would say it's a pretty simple progression. You start with your own representative. Look them up on that list that we put up there that's in the Google Drive folder of co-sponsors. If they haven't co-sponsored, write to them first. Then you could go from there to the other people in your state, other people in your region. And then, if you want to expand after that in some way, you can try to do so. And if you want help, if you're like, I would like to contact people, but really give me some help on who I should contact, email me. I'll pick out 10 people for you to contact. My goal is to reach out to everybody. And to do so, So that, obviously it's better if it's somebody in their district or somebody in their state. But, I think that just reaching out, and most of these folks are going to be very sympathetic to the idea if they just see it. So what to say to people now, as I said, there is a sample email in the resource folder. And Jimmy, it's good to see you. And I'm sorry if I left you hanging there for a moment. I didn't get you fast enough. I apologize. And I am recording this so you can go back and look at it again and see all the fabulous things that I've said so far. There is a sample email. I would really say write your own email. Look at the sample email if you want to for guidance, but especially since it's likely that people will end up getting an email from me and maybe an email from Keith and maybe an email from Madeline, maybe one from Colin, that we probably don't want them all to look the same, because that's going to be like, bad. So basically you're trying to make a short pitch in this, and you're I always say things to include. Always include the bill number, 707. Always ask them to co-sponsor. You are asking a very specific thing. You are not saying, please support this. You are not saying, we'd like your help. You are saying, please co-sponsor this. If you have any kind of personal connection, i.e. if you're in their district, if you know a Ghost Army veteran, if you're a family member of a Ghost Army veteran, anything that you can draw on using those lists that we talked about in the resource folder of Ghost Army soldiers from each state. Those are ways to make connections. And mention how many co-sponsors we have. I think it's amazing that we have 215 co-sponsors. I think as we get closer and closer to 290, that's going to inspire more people to join, because people like to be, they like to be winners, right? They want to be in the winning side. And then I would say always include the information sheet in any email that you write. And those are the basic things that I would put into any email. I'll also tell you one other thing. I'm getting a lot of noise from somebody who's not muted. So just check to see if you're muted, because there's a lot of, it might be an alien also listening in. We're not sure. I would also mention that one of our veterans, Stanley Nance, who's the great-grandfather of Madeline Christensen, Stanley Nance turns 103 on February 28th, right? So, I know, right? So as we get into the second half of February, I'm going to send out probably a general email blast to Congress that uses his picture and uses the video that Madeline did, and I know she's working on another one. But that's something you can use and say, look, we have a veteran who's turning 103. Let's get this done, for his birthday. And by the way, he's not the oldest, because that's Gil Seltzer, and Gil is 106. And I talked to Gil yesterday, and he was telling me about something he didn't want to do. He said he didn't have the energy to it, but it's Gil. So the way he said it was, Rick, I just don't have the energy to do that, booming over the phone. And I'm like, yeah, okay, Gil, but tone down your energy. But we have, those are nice things, right, to mention. Honestly, you can find, if you were really wanting to go wild, you could find a photo of Stanley Nance online. We can put one in the resource folder. We can put a photo of Gil Seltzer in there. We want to get people's attention, and these are kind of ways that we can do it. And then I would just ask you to communicate by using that sheet. I'll share it again just to show it. It's in the resource folder, because I know some people joined us here, and I'm just trying to make sure I'm doing the right thing. That we have the 21 co-sponsor list, and yes, thank you. I don't want a gift from Zoom. And so, if you talk to somebody in Debbie Lesko's office, well, she's already co-sponsored. If you talk to somebody in Rick Crawford's office in Arkansas, just put a note here under the contact column, email from Linda, to 2/8/2021. And, if somebody's already done that column, put it in the next column. And if we run out of columns, I'll add more columns. I think it's close enough to infinite that I'm not concerned about. And the last thing I'd say about writing, because I really am finishing this up and about to open this up for questions and discussion. The last thing I would say about writing is that follow-up is really important. Okay, there is not a group of people who are more distracted in the United States than congressional aides. And Taylor Winkleman, who's on this call and who was an aide to Senator Ed Markey for a few years, will tell you that's true. And so, I hope. And so, following up, sending don't follow up the next day, don't follow up 10 minutes later, but following up 5 days, a week later, and just saying, circling back, and following up again a week after that if you haven't heard from them. Keep it on their plate. I always say, stay positive. It's gentle, it's positive, but it's persistent. We're being persistent. Um, and as something stuck in my head that Taylor said once when we were lobbying in person too, is just keep in mind that the opportunity to co-sponsor this thing, to spend a few minutes on the Ghost Army, that you may be offering that person, that congressional aide, the high point of their day. Because here's something that's not divisive, it's not awful and horrible, and it's not somebody badgering them and screaming. It's like something really positive that they can do that involves history and celebrating Americans, and so it's a really positive thing. So it's my hope that you'll all get started in the this week or next week and start emailing people as I say, if you have questions on how to do that, we'll do questions now, but you can always email me, and you all know that I'm rick@ghostarmy.org. So I'm available there, really hoping that we can build a lot of momentum in the next few weeks. And with that, I'm going to take a breath. I've said the things that I wanted to say to get us started, and I want to put it out there for you guys to ask questions, comments. If there's observations from the people who have already lobbied, I welcome all of that.
Rick, I have a comment.
Start with Doug, and then I'll go. I'm going to start with Doug, and then I'll go to Ed.
I got to leave now.
Oh, start with Ed. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Bye.
Did you want to say anything before you left? No, you're leaving.
I'll talk to you about it later.
Okay. Sorry. Ed's a very busy guy. He is a federal prosecutor in the District of Columbia. I'll leave it to your imagination what he's busy with these days. He's also a retired U.S. Army general. So, Doug, you obviously outrank the general. Go ahead.
One minor comment, well, not so minor. For anybody new, as I learned in being a neophyte 2 years ago on this, it's extremely simple for the congressperson to co-sponsor the bill. As it was explained to me, it's just they send an email. It doesn't take any effort on their part. They simply zoom out an email. So don't feel that you're putting a burden on anyone. It's a piece of cake for them. The hard part's a sell job, and even that isn't too hard when you explain that it's not for profit, it's not for fame, it's to support people who made this country possible. That's it.
Excellent. Who else wants to talk? Go ahead, Linda. You have to unmute yourself. It's lower left. Yeah, you got it.
Got it. Has anybody had any experience with going to a local newspaper to draw more attention in that particular area where we've not had support, to see if we can get get the information out there so that we maybe tug at the heartstring? Has anybody done that in the group?
Well, I mean, obviously, I've done a lot of that all the time, reaching out to a lot of media. I don't know about if other people have done anything kind of reaching out to local media, which I think is a great idea, especially if there's a local angle that you can provide them, a person in that area who was in the unit or something that's some kind of connection.
Okay, thank you.
Rick, remember that I had an article published in the Branson Tri-Lakes. This is probably
That's right.
yeah, 2 years ago. Talked about the gold medal. So
You want to talk about that a little bit, Carolyn?
well, I'm trying to think, how did that get started? Oh, I know. Initially, I sent a letter to the editor for a local paper in Branson, Missouri. And the editor of that paper thought that he really wanted to go ahead and do a story. So I met with a reporter, and they provided on the front page my dad's picture and also a history of the Ghost Army, as well as the need for people to actually write their Congress people to support the gold medal. So I felt good about that. Most certainly.
Yeah, and Carolyn, of course, is the daughter of Ghost Army veteran Joe Spence, and she's also on the board of the Ghost Army Legacy Project. I confess, Carolyn, I'd forgotten. You know, there's so many, there's so many things going in and out over time that I did not remember that, but that was really useful and helpful. So yeah, so there you go. She started by just writing a letter to the editor, and it started that way. So there's an idea.
Well, then also in the Branson area, November during Veterans Week is a really big project with bringing in vets from all over the country. And so I published another thing in the Branson Bugle that went to all those people that were in Branson for Veterans Week. So that probably went to maybe 500 people that were in attendance. So I guess those are my two things.
We've also been, I would mention that one of the things that we're trying to do, the American Legion has passed a resolution a year or two ago supporting this, and we've done some outreach to some different VFW posts to try to get the Veterans of Foreign Wars to do the same thing. And anybody who has a connection with a VFW post that wants to try to you know, I think the more grassroots interest we have in that, the easier it's going to be to try to pass something up to the state and national level in that organization. So you know, I would suggest that you can email me, and that's something that probably easier to talk about that offline than to get into a big discussion about it right now. And Carolyn, I wanted to ask, you have a comment about emailing Annie and Chris Stewart. Are you just asking for their emails, or are you making a suggestion?
No, I just was trying to clarify the comment that I think Doug made, that if I'm going to put that in the letter, how easy it is to go ahead and put your name as a co-sponsor, that legislative aid would basically be
Yes.
recommended
Oh, right,
either
right.
Annie or Chris.
And there's basically the point of contact, which is on the one sheet, but I also usually write it in the email, is Will Pisano in Annie Custer's office. And Doug is right, to co-sponsor, it's just an aid from, you know, Congressman X's office sending an email to Will and saying, add us as a co-sponsor. I mean, that is literally it.
Okay. Thank you.
Madeline had people where 5 minutes after we've met with them, they've sent that email off.
And then some people never.
Or 3 months later, that happens too.
Yeah. Yeah.
What else? We're coming up to 40 minutes. We'll see if we do get disconnected and you want to come back. Just wait a moment and then log in again, and we'll start another 40-minute meeting, because this is my personal meeting page. But I'm hoping they won't actually cut us off. Fingers are crossed. Yes, Jimmy.
So Rick, I'll give you a near real-time update. I spoke this afternoon. I live south of Seattle, and spoke this afternoon with my new member of Congress's in-district military liaison. And I knew that she was a daughter of a Korean War soldier. She's Korean American, but she also, I learned, is on the House Armed Services Committee. And this would be an easy win for her as a freshman congressman to sign on. So he promised to take this next to her legislative director, and didn't make any promises, but said, I anticipate a call back soon.
Excellent.
So we'll see if we can build you a fire from the left coast.
Well, Jimmy, I really appreciate that, and I know I've dragooned you into this just because you happen to be you made that terrible mistake of sending me an email after that Zoom presentation, and I just stuck my claws right in. So I thank you so much for sending that to her. She seems like a really interesting person. I think that's the 10th district, right, in Washington.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
very,
And
very.
I'll also add the claws were first brandished on us when Linda and I watched the Amazon Prime Video the other night, and she's all in. So I think you've got a great story. We
She's
just need
working
to-
with me on this, then, right? We're gonna.
Indeed.
We'll get you to Washington
We're
one
both
day, Jimmy.
workers. Say again.
We'll get you to Washington one day. You know.
As soon as I've had my my second shot, I'll be more willing to travel.
Yeah, that's how I feel as well. Yeah,
Rick.
Colin.
Speaking of like follow-ups, what I've done is, and I appreciate the list because then I'll ask friends in different states who their members of Congress are, and then I'll ask them to call because I've been shot down numerous times with the whole zip code thing. Where are you from? And then my squeaky wheel to get the grease is calling my friends back to see if they have called or emailed their representatives about this. So I'm sure that's why I got limited Christmas cards this year because of my calls to my friends. But if it gets a few more votes in or sponsors, I'm all for it. So I just want to say, Rick and everybody, what an amazing project, and I appreciate being invited tonight and stuff like that, and trying to get a couple more signatures. So
well, listen, Colin, if you want to lose friends quickly, start asking them for money every year, and see how quickly they go away. They actually haven't, but I don't understand why not. To be frank. And Colin's, as I said, he's in Wisconsin, and Colin brought me to Wisconsin with a Ghost Army veteran, Gazo Nemeth, a few years ago, where we spoke to literally thousands of students in this mad 3-day Ghost Army extravaganza. And he's been amazing to work with on that, and really appreciate your staying involved with him.
Hey, Rick.
Yes, hang on. Is that Taylor?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
I want to ask you a favor, and I'm sorry to those of you who know the Ghost Army story so well. I have, I think, 4 or 5 of my Georgetown master's students joining the call, and I don't think any of them know anything about the Ghost Army bill, aside from the very quick, they were a deception unit in World War II that I sent them. So I was wondering if I could beg you to do a really quick, 1-minute elevator pitch on who they were. I know you don't know a lot about the Ghost Army. I know it's not your
hang on.
area of expertise, but
consult my book on it and see what I have, which turns out which has my name on the cover. That's amazing.
That's
weird. And thank you, Taylor, and welcome you guys. Yes, she told me you might be coming, and I'm glad you're here. And this is we're being grassrootsy, but the Ghost Army is a nickname for a military U.S. Army unit in World War II. The official name of it was the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, and there was a smaller sister unit also. But this unit was involved in deception. So their mission on the battlefields of Europe was impersonating other American units to fool the Germans about where those units really were and where they were headed, what their intentions were. And to do this, they used, and it's kind of magical, they used inflatable vehicles like inflatable tanks and trucks and artillery. They used sound effects. They used radio deception, which is what Madeline's great-grandfather, Stanley Nance, did. And they did what they called special effects, which was actually like wearing the patches of the unit that they were impersonating generals in that unit, creating phony headquarters. And it's this very strange story that was kept secret for more than 50 years. So they were never honored when you might have thought they'd be honored. They were involved in more than 20 deceptions in Northern Europe, as well as 2 deceptions that sister unit did in Italy. Um, and there's a great quote about them that says to the effect that rarely in the history of war has there been a group of so few men that did so much to influence a major military campaign. That's about a minute. I can also do an hour, and everybody else here knows that.
Rick, we can do like 5 hours. Like, come on.
We can, right? We can go all night. We can go all night, Ghost Army, but we won't. I see, Linda. I see you raising your hand, but before I call on you, Taylor, is that enough, or and you guys do you get what it's about?
Yeah, I think that's enough for them to get what it's about. I would love for a like 30-second summary of all the things that we've done over the last, you've been doing this for what, 7 years now? 8 years?
Only five. Only 5.
Okay. So I didn't come in until about 4 years ago, but all the things that we've done real quick to get to where we are.
I'm not sure I can remember all the things that we've done. So you can fill some in, but the bill was originally introduced. First of all, this is the 4th Congress that we've introduced the bill in, and so it's been a persistent effort over a period of years. Although I would say we really, from my point of view, and not talking about Taylor or anybody else, I didn't really have my lobbying act together as much until this year. But it's been about 4 years that we've done this. So we have done events. We did a Senate briefing at one point that Senator Markey came to, that Taylor set up. We've done a screening and a talk on the House side at various points. A bunch of us have gone to Washington. We've done 2 or 3 or 4 physical lobbying trips to Washington, going door to door in the halls of Congress. We have done massive email campaigns and efforts like this where we're trying to get a lot of different people to be involved in campaigns. We have done publicity, newspaper articles, magazine articles, TV spots, NPR, various sorts of things. What am I leaving out, Taylor? Or anybody else? What have we done that I can't remember?
I think the soldier list was really the only thing that you left out.
Oh, right. We made lists. We've diced and sliced the list of soldiers to understand where they all came from and what they're connected to. We also have, I can supply it actually if anybody's interested. We have a master roster of everybody, and it includes bio information on some of the soldiers. So we're trying to do that right now to kind of flesh out who a lot of those people were. So all of that is related to the Ghost Army effort. And now, Taylor, Linda's dying to say something, so I have to let her jump in.
Well, I just wanted to say specifically to the students that when you told me that these guys were in the middle of the action to try to actually draw the Nazis away from the actual American troops, and yet they were not given guns or ammunition. Is that correct?
They had guns and ammunition, but they had only small arms. They did not have any heavy artillery or anything like that.
So,
and your father was one of them.
Yeah, saved the lives of 12 men with some of the worst artillery happening around him.
Yeah.
But these are students that we're talking to, and many of these guys were students. My dad had a lot of Parsons School of Design students, and he said every time there was shelling, they jumped in the foxhole, but they didn't have a gun to pull out, so they pulled out their sketch pad, and that's why there's so much documentation about what they were seeing going on around them with all their artwork.
Well, and it is true that that there were a lot of art students that were part of this, and the unit that handled the visual deception, the inflatable tanks, about half of that unit was artists, and many of them were art students or had recently just left art school, and that was how the Army recruited them. Um, and yeah, somebody asked me if I know when we can go back to DC. Is that Madeline and Michelle? No, I don't know. Maybe in the summer, I'm thinking. And Doug points out that the bill is revenue neutral, and that is a very good point. And we have had people say to us, well, especially people in Congress who don't necessarily know a lot about gold medal bills, and they say, well, how much is this going to cost? Because there are some people for whom that is a big issue, and it really is essentially zero, because they will make a medal, but the mint will then sell copies of the medal, and you will all buy them, and so that's how they make the money. So, and I will buy a bunch. So there you go. But thank you, Linda, for that. And is there any other questions? Jerry, I'll put you next. I'm going to see any other questions, especially related to our lobbying. Jerry.
Well, I just, to follow up on what you were just saying, you get the most remarkable questions. This seems like such a no-brainer. You know, it's all good. It's, you know, you're honoring these veterans. But I've had legislative aides say to me, well, what are the downsides of this, of supporting this? I'm like, I can't think of a single one. So sometimes you just have to be prepared to point out the obvious. There's revenue neutral, no downsides. It's all good news. It's a happy thing. You know, so stating the obvious sometimes is it's also a good thing to do.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, in some ways, you do feel, and I have felt that if you can actually get them to understand the basic story, that these guys are carrying out deceptions on or near the front lines. They're risking their lives. That 3 of the soldiers were killed. Dozens of them were wounded. It's not some lark. It's not some kind of ridiculous thing. It might be funny in places or whimsical, but it's a really serious story. And I always come back to a phrase that they use: creativity and imagination to save lives and help win the war, help defeat a deadly enemy, and try to appeal to people that way. And it's really also true and worth pointing out for anybody who might be asked about this. And I just, before I finish, Tom Fortman, are you having technical problems there? I hope you guys are okay. Carly, you can still hear us? Maybe you can. You're muted, so I can't hear you. But I'm happy that you're there. Boy, that thought just went right out of my head. I literally, what was I saying? I interrupted myself. Senior moment. It happens.
You're inspiring us, Rick.
Well, I mean, there is still a lot of interest in this from a lot of governmental organizations. It has a lot of relevance to today. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. The U.S. Army PSYOPs folks at Fort Bragg, they consider this unit to be their predecessor, and they study what the Ghost Army did. The National Intelligence School at Fort Huachaca in Arizona, they study what the Ghost Army did. I have spoken at Fort Bragg. I have spoken to the FBI. I have spoken to the Pentagon, at least one Pentagon agency, which I'm not supposed to name. I don't know why. I have spoken today to the Secret Service. That people are interested in this because they feel that not only is this like great and worthy of honor, but it's still relevant to study, for what we're doing today. And somebody pointed out in our meeting today with the Secret Service, misinformation is rampant today. And the Ghost Army, I mean, they are in essence purveyors of misinformation, but, for good, for a good cause, and, not to the general public, but to an enemy who we're fighting a war. And so I do think that it remains a very relevant topic.
Rick?
Yes.
Yeah, you just covered a lot of what I was about to say.
So sorry.
Well, the Army is is all over the Ghost Army, and it's more than just the 4th PSYOP group. Yeah, the 4th PSYOP has adopted the Ghost Army as their predecessor unit. Other parts of the Army are getting into it and digging and digging and digging, and they keep coming back with, wow, that's amazing. Wow, I didn't know that. Now, when you're talking to people on the Hill, one of the questions that from time to time comes up is that, well, okay, you know, what is anybody doing about it today? Is it relevant today? And the answer is, it sure is. And if you just go out onto the 4th Psychological Operations Group webpage on Facebook or Facebook page, you'll see some stuff right there, along with some of their really cool videos. So it is timely, and interest continues to grow on the government side.
Roy, would it be possible to put some of the videos or something that seems really, really relevant into the file in this Google Doc as part of our resources? I would be very interested in having something like that to share.
I did an hour and plus down at Fort Bragg in November that they filmed in the PSYOPs Media Operations Center. That's on Facebook, and it's the @4, then THPOG. So you can see that for what that's worth.
Hey, Roy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can take care of this because I can put that on our links page. The PSYOP guys also did a video from the museum exhibit opening in Washington, D.C. And I can put that on our webpage. And I can see what else that they might have. If you and I take a look, we can see what they might have. And we can put all those in this links page in the resource document so that if you want to use that, it's right available to you.
Got it.
And I wanted to mention, I'll get to you in a moment, Carla. I wanted to mention that, concerning the relevance also, I mean, I didn't really want to call them both out, but we had 2 retired generals on this call earlier who are both fascinated and interested in the Ghost Army, Ed Burley and Jimmy Collins. And so, there's a big part of current or recent military who are quite taken with this story. Carla, I said you could talk next.
Oh, I did a few of these in the, I guess it was spring, and I was surprised at the responses. People write back and say, I'm not doing that anymore, and refer you to somebody else, or they're on maternity leave. So many people do read them. I think a photo is really strong, and I would really encourage people to send people to the website because it's wonderful. And it's a place, if they don't know anything about it, can tell them almost everything.
Yes, and the Ghost Army website, which is, you can get there a couple of ways, but ghostarmy.org is the simplest, .org. We also have a page on there which also has some of the kinds of stuff that we've been talking about regarding lobbying. I'm still updating it with the new Congress, so it's a little incomplete. But that's another place that, if you're interested, if you're trying to kind of still get your arms around it or trying to suggest to somebody else that they should be involved, that's a webpage on ghostarmy.org you can go to. And we've got a lot, as Carla says, I mean, we have a lot of other resources on there, way too many to link, but a lot of historical resources, primary source documents, photos, videos, all sorts of stuff. It's a real content-rich place.
I have one other question. I appreciate the enormous amount of resources that you've made available for us. We should be able to craft some perfectly decent emails.
Encyclopedic. I mean, I think at this point, a 5-page email that everybody loves to read.
But I do have one question. Do you think that either or both of the generals who have expressed interest in lobbying and helping would be willing to give a quote so that you could, have a quote from some person who's current and relevant and that, the Congress people may know and recognize?
I am sure that Ed would be willing to do that, and I will ask him.
Okay.
I shouldn't say sure, but I would say likely.
Great.
Jimmy is somebody who is a more recent acquaintance, and I've got him working on some other things, and I don't want to stress the relationship, but I will try to bring it up at an appropriate time. It's like when I first meet you, I don't want to get my claws in too deep right away because I want you to think that it's going to be fun and a positive experience and not ruin it for you right at the start.
Right.
Well, you guys, we are just about on an hour, and we got everything in. And did anybody have something that they wanted to say that they didn't get to say? I mean, Reese, you didn't say anything the entire time. So
I just want to say hi to Madeline, Michelle, and Keith, and Jerry too. Right? Didn't do that before. And Roy, I can't see you, but say.
Yeah, Roy, we all want to see you.
It's a very secretive guy. We will.
Is this a ups, down
I'm
thing?
just technologically impaired. I'm sorry.
Oh, I don't feel so bad.
I have a recording of this. You won't be able to see Roy on that either. That I will send out to everybody, just sort of as a courtesy. And before I wrap it up, I think Taylor wanted to say one more thing. So Taylor, we're always happy to hear from you.
Thank you. So I did want to mention one area of pushback that I dealt with a great deal when I was on the Hill. When we went to rewrite the bill back in 2017, and we had to send it to the Army historian, and the Army historian it was a former tanker. I think I dealt with him a lot, and I got into several fights with him. But he was a former tanker who really valued the how did he put it? In his comments on the legislation, he basically said they weren't actively involved in combat, which was, wrong. I had stronger words than that in private, but yeah. So one of the things that you might come across is someone saying, oh, we want to check this with the Army historian. And before you let them do that, because that Army historian, so far as I know, is still there and still doesn't like this bill because he's very mean about it. You probably want to say something like, that was done by Senator Markey's office, and they have the full set of original documents that was done to write the bill, right? So I had to go back and I had to show all original sources for all of the things that we wrote in the bill and everything that's in there. So Senator Markey's office has that, and I know this because they emailed me a year after I left his office and said, hey, where is it? And I made sure they had it. So just if you get that pushback, there is an answer for it. Don't say, oh yeah, definitely call him because he's a jerk and it's not fun. And he'll try to tank the bill for us. No pun intended. Sorry, that's it. Thanks, Rick.
Roy, did you want to add anything to that? You don't have to. I just didn't want to.
Yeah, one of the things that you run into, and this is part of why the psychological operations people have been so excited to get the support from us. There was always a bias, World War II and still today, about things that are not kinetic. In other words, if you're not blowing something up, they're not happy. And so one of the senior people, PsyOps, that was decorated and speaking when I was down there, his comment was, most people will not know what you did. And even if they do know what you did, they won't understand the significance of it. And that really applies well to the Ghost Army, because most people don't know what they did, still don't know what they did. And I was just looking at a letter from George Reb, who was the commander of the combat engineers, to the person that was editing the Assembly, which is the magazine for West Point. And the colonel at West Point was telling this retired two-star general, well, you have to drop this, and that's not important, and this isn't important. And Reb was so frustrated, he wrote a detailed letter back to the guy and sent me a copy, basically saying, you know, you just seem to be missing the point here in the nicest possible way. Though General Reb was pretty direct. And you run into this. There's also, if you start getting into people like the Army Historian's Office, what we found is the Army Historian's Office didn't know much about the Ghost Army. I went there physically in 2001, and they had almost nothing. So for several years, I was feeding them documents. So yeah, you're going to find people that think they know a lot about it, and you have to gently educate them to the point where they realize perhaps they don't. And sometimes, you know, you just really have to push your way through that.
I would just add to that, and I do want to wrap this up because, and Rob, you just joined us, but I think you got a time zone issue because we are just finishing.
I apologize.
Sadly, but we did record it so you can enjoy it in living color afterwards. But I would say that there are parts of the Army that are really excited about this. There are parts of the defense establishment that are really excited about this. There are parts that are not. And, you know, I always want to emphasize the positive. You know, we're not going to prevent somebody from saying they want to check with the Army historian, but that's why I like to keep pointing out the organizations that have supported the variety of representatives who've already signed on, the sort of the widespread support. There's nothing, what's the word, dangerous about this bill. It's not like, well, should we really award them? I mean, there may be a few people who are opposed. There's a real widespread momentum for it and support for it. And so that's always what I like to emphasize. Guys, I am going to wrap this up now and say thank you very much to everybody who joined, and especially thank you to all of you who have lobbied, all of you who will lobby. We thank Taylor and her students for joining us and giving us a little extra audience here. And, you know, keep the conversation going with me, and I'm happy to talk and provide guidance, and let's reach out and blanket these guys and get this done. Okay.
Rick, thank you to you from all of us for your dedication to our family members and loved ones, and some people that are doing this don't even have anybody related to them and feel as compassionate about it as you. And thank you for, you know, picking up the reins and running with this. So really, thank you.
My pleasure. The great honor.
Yeah, and I would like to echo that, but I would like to encourage anybody that's got a school that allows assemblies right now to have Rick come or to have anybody come, because my students, even though it was like, I think it might be 6 years ago, 5 years ago or whatever, I'll check the dates, but they still talk about it because Rick even called 4 students to come up and pick up a tank and move it on our gym floor. So kudos, Rick, to keep this story coming all the way to Wisconsin in the middle of nowhere where we just have cows and a few barns that are not caved in and still functional. So kudos to everybody. But again, thank you, Rick, for bringing this story to my students and that because they still talk about it.
Are we ever going to have a full-length movie about this with that Ben Affleck? We hear all these rumors. Can you put those rumors to rest?
It's in progress. There's work going on. There is a project that was involving Ben Affleck, and it's been in kind of deep freeze for the last year. And I'm not sure Ben is still going to be involved, but there are still efforts to make this into a movie or a series that I'm involved in. And I could say more, but then I'd have to send the Secret Service after you. So, all right, bye guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Very much, Rick.